Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and today we are finally going to be talking about the newest album from the Voidz called Virtue. But first, let's talk briefly about being weird in music. And this is actually a topic I don't think gets enough attention. Mostly because for something to be called out as strange or weird, there is at least some element of surprise from the audience. In the era of nothing surprises anybody anymore thanks to the internet, the bar for weird winds up getting pretty damn high. And for a critic like myself, it gets even higher. And not just because of all the insanity you can dredge up out of Mew or Bandcamp that I wind up hearing, but because there is a grand tradition of outsider artists that might have existed outside the mainstream where their brand of oddity might be just as catchy, but also brings with it certain elements that the public majority are just not willing or able to process. And yet again, in the internet era where it's so easy for influences to crossbreed and mutate or become memes, the public might seem more willing or able to embrace these outsider acts, but it becomes a bit of a balancing act both for the artists and the fans, because as much as you might want your personal favorites outside the mainstream to do well, you know deep down that artistic eccentricity can get eaten alive by the industry, and we've seen it so many times before. And then bridging between the artist and the fan, you got somebody like Julian Casablancas, frontman of The Strokes and his own defiantly odd band, The Voidz. And I will freely admit that he didn't quite flip that weird alarm for me with records like The Voidz' debut, Tyranny, in 2014. It was off-kilter and paranoid and scattershot, absolutely, but it was also overlong and not quite as challenging or thoughtful as it thought it was. But if it wasn't that record that compelled any really interest in me to cover this record, it was a series of manic interviews before it came out that revealed that Julian Casablancas was a huge fan of Ariel Pink, who I've talked about on this channel before. And that kind of made sense, especially when you start digging into certain thematic parallels, but it was also telling that while Ariel Pink might be the genuine article and an act like, say, MGMT might be the studied devotee, especially on their last album, Julian Casablancas was the fan that didn't always grasp the intricacies but adored the aesthetic. Now, reviews of Virtue were suggesting this could be somewhat changing, at the very least in terms of sonic fidelity and tone, but given that this record also came with signing to RCA and working with producers most well known for working with the War on Drugs, Weezer, and Beyonce, I had my doubts about this. But hey, it's nearly an hour long, surely they could have gotten something working, right? Well, honestly, not really, at least for me. And that's frustrating to hear, because you can tell that Julian Casablancas was at least looking towards sounds and experimentation that had some promise with Virtue, and yet a lot of repeated listens gave me the feeling that looking was all he really did. Because while this album does not feel compromised, it does feel like a half measure towards tones that other acts have executed far more effectively. And this falling into the weird, awkward gray zone where it's not weird or challenging or well-written enough to rise to more, but also not quite catchy or well-composed enough to really compensate. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad by any means. There are definitely solid cuts overall on the record, and I can see it finding an audience a couple months later. That's why people are still voting for me to cover it. But man, it just did not connect more deeply for me. It's decent, but I can't say it's better. Now, to its credit, I see where most of this album could have worked, mostly which comes in the content, which feeds off some of the paranoia that filled Tyranny, but takes it in some new directions. For one, while there's always been some socio-political subtext beneath the Voidz' work, this record moves a fair amount of that subtext into the text, and gives it the meaty melodic grooves in order to back it up. Pyramid of Bones confronting the legacy of colonialism, that is potent, but the reason that it's a great song is because Julian Casablancas doesn't hold back, and it's a kick-ass rock song, which there were more of them, but we'll get to that. But Julian Casablancas is also more interested in the broader picture, specifically framing around a complicated, nuanced truth in comparison with the ease in which lies are sold and swallowed by the mainstream public. It's why it's so much easier to believe in conspiracy theories than complicated systemic rot and flawed people. Look at The Wire, it really touched on that point. And that's why ALieNNatioN is such an ugly, complicated song. It starts out in wartime abuses of power and then drills deeper into police brutality, and then even deeper into the insecurities of us all that drive people to buy weapons or guns. And it shows not just the bad actors profiting in that system, but also the revelation that those systems, they're pretty fragile, and those profiting within it, they know it. And it's an interesting parallel that Julian Casablancas then draws with the music industry. It's easily to buy into the lie presented in the mainstream surrounding the human condition instead of the ugly, complicated truth that's exposed by some outsider art, and Julian Casablancas doesn't let the audience off off the hook in that consumption. They do have a choice. And yet, if that was the entire core of the album's content, I would probably get behind it more. But then Casablancas starts introducing elements that undermine his main point and a lot of his pathos. For one, you get songs like Permanent High School and Lazy Boy, where you hit the sharp realization that any self-awareness he has about his art falling outside of what is accepted, well, it's kind of limited to say the least. And you can tell that he still hasn't quite fully processed the long shadow that the Strokes' early success left over his desire to make weirder material. And then when we get tracks midway through, like Wink, that want to drag the listener into that darker, challenging territory, well, all you get is a yawning pit of increasingly empty nihilism and paranoia that starts really pressing my patience, especially by the time we get to the hopelessness that ends out the record on a really downbeat note. And here's the ugly truth. You dig a little bit deeper, you realize there just isn't that much insight or weirdness that Casablancas is bringing to the table. It equivocates to teenage melodrama and some vestige of self-awareness, and yet I'm not sure that Casablancas realizes how true that deeply is, while not seeking to either tap into righteous teenage fury or transcend the nascent, self-obsessed angst and immaturity that lies at the roots of songs like Lazy Boy and Leave It in My Dreams, instead of just curling into a ball when confronted with the real issues. And that's not even getting into how it kind of undercuts your support of disrupting those larger societal systems when your thematic parallel is just making it all about you and your art. It just feels a little petulant there. What's exasperating about it all is that it doesn't really understand the Voidz' strengths as a band, because while I like the experimentation on this album and the production and writing, it's hard for me not to feel like a heavier, more straightforward act could have stuck the landing a lot more consistently. Yeah, the flirtations with Green Album era Weezer and the liquid guitar phrases, it's pleasant enough on songs like Leave It in My Dreams and Lazy Boy, and while it doesn't quite nail the gummy cassette era ooze of sound you get from an Ariel Pink project, I do respect the effort on songs like the lumpy, faint twinkles of ALieNNatioN or the muted, warping synth pop of Pink Ocean. That song's actually really good. But if you're contrasting those with the glam metal noisy chaos of Pyramid of Bones, or the garage pickups of Black Hole, or the hardcore punk drumlines and explosive power of We're Where We Were, or even the faux industrial touches behind the massive groove of Curious, which could have easily been one of the better songs here, except for that massively auto-tuned outro that just felt indulgent, didn't need to go there, or even the hints of the old Strokes sound on Wink, I'm sorry, some of the experimentation otherwise just is not in the same ballpark of quality. The band just sounds more comfortable building their instrumentation off of a stronger, heavier foundation. And this is where we have to talk about the production and why cohesion matters. This record clearly wants to sound like more of an ugly patchwork of sounds. Fine, especially with the inclusion of increasingly lo-fi and muddy tones and shrill squeals as we delve deeper into the madness, but the mixing doesn't often know how to balance this effectively in order to accentuate the melodic grooves effectively or cultivate that atmosphere. Take All Words Are Made Up. It's got some dub-inspired groove and there's a solid guitar line, but the fidelity is way too clean and crisp to fit in with the atmosphere, especially when you introduce some of those higher vocal layers which got really grating. And it gets especially jarring when right after that, we get a lo-fi acoustic cover where Julian Casablancas recontextualized a smooth late 70s pop song into a really bad Bob Dylan impression. Especially when you realize that if this record was sequenced properly, that moment, it wouldn't be good, but it could have had more impact. And that's probably what hurts Virtue the most. It's got fragments of a cohesive arc both in its content and sonically, but it also compromises it through whiplash genre digressions that aren't even especially challenging, but feel kind of obtuse and underwhelming, especially with this track order, especially when the album ends on such a downbeat, nihilistic note, which honestly I don't think was the best note they could have ended on. But as a whole, alright, look folks, this record's been on my schedule for a long time, and I really hope that by giving this review in full, I'd have more to dissect with it, but the truth is that it just kind of flat for me. It's got a few decent cuts, but otherwise I'm just not all that impressed by content that doesn't delve deeper, and messy production that doesn't stick the landing more effectively. I will argue there's more longevity to this project in comparison with Tyranny. It's got more variation and standout moments to be worth that, and again, it is a decent record. I see it finding its audience, but otherwise, I'll freely admit I found more enjoyment when Albert Hammond Jr. made the Strokes Light album with Francis Trouble earlier this year. Yeah, it was by far more basic and less ambitious, but it had stronger individual songs when you break it down to the composition and writing. And for me, this is a solid 6 out of 10. It's recommended for the fans, but if you want something that's truly weirder, go get the newest MGMT record. It's still very fresh. Hell, so is that newest Ariel Pink album from last year. Frankly, check those out first. they're a fair bit better. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I know, this review is so late, but again, it took a while to get up my schedule, and I only now got a chance to really delve in deeply, and again, I wish it was better, but it just didn't connect for me, folks. I'm sorry, I wanted it to. But if you want to buy it, links down there below, and I got the poll up there for all you to tell me how wrong I am. Looking forward to it. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process to support this channel, and I can cover these albums a lot earlier, link to my Patreon is right over there, where 3 times a week you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even a top 10 list to that schedule. More details right there. If you want to see a schedule, it's a link down there on my Instagram below. I also want to thank ALieNNatioN for doing some of the new rebranding that I've done for the outro and for some other little video pieces that will be coming out, and you'll see it in Billboard Breakdown for sure. And yeah, thanks a lot for the rebranding and some of the artwork there. If you want to check her channel out, links down there below as well. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.